Brian McLachlan. He's worked for Owl Magazine and is also the creator of the successful online webcomic, The Princess Planet.
So I wake up when my wife's alarm goes off in the morning when she has to be to work. And I've sort of gotten used to her schedule, so I make my schedule work around hers. So I get up in the morning, have breakfast, check my emails, see whether I have any impending work or changes required to something. And then I sit down and start work. I do find myself getting distracted sometimes by what's going on Twitter or Facebook or something, but I don't think any more than any other employee who works at a desk or in a cubicle. And I find myself, usually more having a burning desire to work on my comic or to work on a drawing than, to see what, hilarious things on Twitter. Hopefully I make the things that distract people from their work rather than get distracted. I was one of those kids in school who, when the teacher said, this is what the assignment is going to be today, I started work on it right away, and then I finished it and I knew exactly how much time I had to goof off. And that's kind of how I approach my work too. Is like I get an assignment in, and if it's writing, I usually give it 24 hours for it to gestate in my mind if it's something I have to really think about. But if it's drawing, I usually just sit down and start working on it as soon as I can, so I know what I'm doing and how much time I have for it. I don't think I've ever missed a deadline, at least not by more than a day or so. So I'm lucky that I have that work ethic that allows me to be a freelancer. I don't have to work in a studio where they force you to work. Working with a group of people who I really enjoy and who I get along with. There are a lot of people who call themselves comic book nerds, but I don't think of myself as a nerd in that sense because, okay, I'm nerdy, but I don't know who drew issue 125 of the Fantastic Four. I don't know who inked it. I don't know who the heroes were. I don't know those little details that nerds usually know about things, people who are obsessive about them. But I realized I was like that with one show, which was a TV show called Mr. Show, where I like to know everything about that weird, sketch comedy television show. And when I was reading about how they would write the scripts for their sketch comedy, I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to sit around with my friends and make jokes all day and write down the funny ones. But, that's a different sort of work environment. And I don't know, if I was going to go into a studio, it would be something where hopefully I could do something like that as opposed to be in my own little cubicle, in my own little space within a large group, because I think that's a strange dichotomy. I like being in my own space away from other people, or being in a group in which I am frequently a collaborator. I think the toughest thing is dealing with the idea of feast or famine. I don't make money off of Princess Planet. It's something that I do for fun, and hopefully one day I'll start making some money off of. But in the meantime, it's fun. So that's what I try and do when I have my downtime. So that, okay, I don't have any work coming in, I can focus on something else and it feels like work. Meanwhile, I'm also trying to find ways to engage with different publishers and make new contacts and get more work, but to not freak out and not let that be I guess that's the hardest thing emotionally, is not knowing where your next paycheck comes from. But this is MDF wood, but I'm going to knock on that, saying that luckily I haven't had to go back part-timing as a cashier yet, so since I stopped that I haven't had to go back. I will if I have to, but so far everything's been going along well enough that I can actually call myself a successful artist, which is not very, doesn't say very much, because a successful artist doesn't necessarily make very much money, but at least I don't have to have a secondary job. When I graduated from Sheridan for illustration, I found actually work quicker writing than I did for doing art. So I started off as a magazine writer. I used to work for a magazine called Vice, which was a subculture, or still is a subculture magazine with, music and, stuff like that. And that's where I first started making my money. And it didn't pay a lot of money, but it got my foot in the door, and so I guess I've always been working at least part-time doing comics and writing and working for magazines and newspapers and places like that. Every month I write a comic for Owl magazine called Alex and Charlie, and it's sort of a junior high school Archies. So it's sort of innocent. Archie is allowed to date, but these characters, they just have crushes. But it's the same sort of, good, wholesome, funny, goofy comic. In addition to that, I also supply Owl with a bunch of puzzles, games, cootie catchers, anything that's, would be fun for a kid to interact with in a magazine. My first influence has to be my friend Jay Bone, who is a fellow comic artist. And he was the one who sort of got me back into looking at comics as something that's interesting. When I look at, what sort of characters or what artists I take my specific style from, I find Jim Henson has been an influence. Like if you look at this character, he might look like something out of Labyrinth. The sort of the beak-nosed, fuzzy animal character. But I also am a fan of, there's a cartoonist that did a lot of work for Playboy magazine. His name was Karaz, and the sort of eye shapes that I do on my females definitely come from that artist. And his color palette is probably an influence on me as well when I go to color my comics. There's nothing that stops you from putting your work online and sharing it with people. There's no reason that you shouldn't be doing it, so I don't know if there's any advice to give to somebody who wants to do it. You just find a place like WordPress that'll, allow you to put up your comics, and you make them and you put them up there. It's if people like it, they'll link to it, and over time you'll get better. If you keep at it, I don't know if there's any more advice. If you're just starting out, the thing is, just do it.